Well, the city of Boston is coping, the New York City is buzzing, and that can only mean one thing. We have to bring the band back together. Marc Berman, everyone's favorite former beat writer, Professor EJ. Let's go. Great to see you guys.
Thanks for the invitation. This is a crazy, crazy, wild time.
We can only do it this way. I mean, get the band back together, especially as an alliteration, given that we're playing Boston. So let's do it.
Yeah, definitely. Marc, we got to start with you. How surprised are you to be sitting here talking about the New York Knicks up 2 and 0? And what is your assessment in terms of what has got the Knicks to this position? Is it more of a Boston collapse? Is it more New York Knicks surprising? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest shock is two 20-point leads just dwindled midway through the third quarter, with Boston suddenly looking like chokers. There's no other nice way to put it. They choked in both games. Right now, they're shooting, I guess, 25% from three-point land. I think 25 of 100. Tatum, what is he, 1 for 14, 1 for 12 in the fourth quarter. I think 0 for 7 from the three-point line in the fourth quarter. Well, the Knicks saw the best of Boston in the regular season. I have to say the Celtics really got up to play the Knicks because they were tired of hearing the New York buzz. They were tired of your podcast pumping up the Knicks. The Celtics just wanted to shut the Knicks fans up, and they did so with four straight beatings, although the final game was close. Opening night, listen, Mikal Bridges, if you go back to opening night, he was nervous. Knicks debut, he couldn't play defense. He couldn't shoot the ball. It was a nightmare. And now he's been heroic in 2 games. And to me, that's the difference. Brunson is Brunson. Towns has been, good enough, and OG had a fantastic game one. But Bridges defensively, and then the heroic fourth quarter is the biggest difference. I said after the Detroit beating that I don't see them beating Boston because I see the Knicks as a one-man Jalen Brunson band.
Hmm. I guess the question I throw at you, Mark, is this question of these 20-point leads. Is this, should we look at this from the framework of, well, 20-point leads in today's NBA, they don't really mean that much as much as they did, let's say, in the 1990s, or should we really look at this as an indictment of the Boston Celtics, saying that perhaps they aren't the team we thought them to be during the regular season? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the heavy reliance on the three-point shot, that's good and bad because when the thing isn't falling, it's a disaster. They're not versatile enough to do things a different way, especially when Porzingis is not himself or not even playing. He gives them a little added dimension. Even though he could hit the three, he could score inside, maybe get an offensive board, and they look like a one-dimensional team. And against the Knicks, especially in those first 3 games, it was lights out from the three-point land. Derek White couldn't miss a shot against the Knicks in the season. And in game one, he struggled the entire night. Game two, he was a little better. But also, the other thing, after game four, not game four, but the fourth game of the regular season, the final game they played, Jalen Brown did not play the second half. And I made a big note of it because now all I do is tweet about the Knicks instead of write about the Knicks in the post. But Jalen was having the knee injury and was suffering from a knee bone bruise. And I said, listen, I think the Celtics will take out the Knicks when they see each other in the second round, unless Jalen Brown is hurt. And Jalen doesn't look like he has lift on his three-point shot. But EJ, I mean, you are a diehard Knicks fan, obviously. And do you feel comfortable going up 2-0, going to the Garden, knowing how those 2 games played out with the Celtics shooting as poorly as they've ever shot?
A lot of my conversations with Knicks fans has been as such. You never know what are the injuries, what are the things with which teams are dealing. We don't really know exactly, and perhaps you have more insight into this, Mark, than I do. What's happening with Kristaps Porzingis? We don't know what's exactly happening with Jalen Brown, and I think that's what makes NBA playoffs so fascinating. is that those little nicks, those little wears and tears, those little injuries, or issues of fatigue, or even mental issues. And this is one of my biggest things with regards to sports is that we sometimes underrate the importance of mentality, intestinal fortitude. And so, with the question of how do I feel up 2-0, am I overwhelmingly confident? No, because most of these games we've won by 1 to 2 points. But I am optimistic knowing that what we thought at the start of this series, the fact that many of us thought that there was no way that the Knicks could be in this position, it it it, I could see a world in which we're meeting back in a week and we're like, how the heck did this happen? So I'm not going to go in saying that I know that the Knicks are going to win, but I now understand that this is no longer the regular season, and the Knicks have done what they couldn't do during the regular season, and they've won 2 games. What's two more?
Yeah,
Well, the betting, I don't know if you do any betting online with these apps, but you could still have to put up $110 just to win 100
Yeah.
to have Boston win the series. Like Boston is still slightly favored, even though I have to win 4 of the next 5 games.
yeah. My next question to you, gentlemen, is one thing that we cannot, I doubt, categorically deny is that the New York are winning the coaching battle. Tom Thibodeau has no doubt coached 2 excellent games, and maybe Joe Mazzulla wasn't as prepared, especially late down the stretch. The Knicks do look like the more confident, organized team. What have you thought about that, Mark?
Well, the one thing that I have to say backfired was when Missoula is intentionally fouling Mitchell to get into the penalty. I think that's a terrible idea. And the beauty of it was before they just got into the penalty, the bonus, Thibodeau took Mitchell out, and you could see Thibodeau with a little smirk on his face. Did anyone notice
Yeah,
that he was
definitely
trying to
noticed that.
suppress a smirk when he took Mitchell out of the game right after he got fouled twice, and basically Boston was in the penalty? Uh, Listen, I don't mind the hack of Mitchell, but put him to the free throw line. Just don't foul him. It wasn't natural. Listen, the hack of anything is never natural, but it just seemed off. And I thought it like threw the rhythm off the defense for Boston. It just wasn't the right thing to do. But listen, down the stretch in the fourth quarter, I don't think he calls the right timeouts at the right
Mhm.
time. And I know he said he wanted that final 15 seconds to go exactly like the possession before when Tatum blew down the court for a layup. But like the Knicks were ready for that. Like that's the one thing the Knicks would be ready for is Tatum exploding down the court, and they were prepared. I would have called the timeout. 15 seconds left. If you think you're a really good coach, you call a timeout and make a play.
Particularly, Mark, when you're talking about another 20-point lead being lost in your own arena, and you're saving timeouts, there's something about the mental psyche, and I don't know, like I'm not a professional basketball player, but at least give your players a little bit of a mental respite where they can feel this sense of, let's calm down, let's regroup. We have the opportunity to win this game. No matter what, we may have lost the first game by blowing a 20-point lead, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to suffer the same fate the second game. And so by choosing not to call a timeout, it really begs this question. I'm going to throw this question to you guys. Was it an issue of execution or was it an issue of arrogance? Is this boss team really a victim of its own success, or is it really down to like those final minutes and they're not executing the way that they should be executing?
Yeah, I think there's some arrogance there, EJ. I agree. I thought I saw it like even in game one, third quarter, they were up 12-20, but maybe it was 16. And like Tatum threw this like ridiculous pass down low, got intercepted. Like Tatum in his mind, oh, the game's over. I'm just going to have some fun.
Yeah.
And with Missoula, I think there's a little arrogance. I heard he's off the record. I heard he's a little cocky guy, and
Mm.
just saying, hey, we're not going to call timeout. Let the net. We'll stop it. We're good enough. We're the Boston Celtics. I do agree with that. CT, do you agree? There's some arrogance coming from the Celtics locker room previously to blowing two
Yeah.
straight games.
Yeah, 100%. But the, to tie it into that, the point I was going to make, guys, is the regular season record, 0-4. I do feel like that was merited in terms of Boston earning their dominance. But you look at the games. One was opening night, for Pete's sake. That was the Knicks' first full lineup of their new guys, and then some of those games, whatever they were, high 3-point variance. And I do feel like these teams are a lot more evenly matched, guys. My honest opinion was that I think variance is starting to catch up to Boston. For example, let's say these teams play each other 8 times. Maybe Boston won the first four dominantly. Now you're seeing the Knicks win the next two because of the 3-point shooting has come back down. After opening night, I said this in the post game. I said, I've really never seen a team shoot that hot. I know a lot of Boston fans on that night were saying, "No, we do this all the time. This is just a normal shooting night." I was like, "This is not a normal shooting night." And then this was opening night. Yes, they were getting nice, but they was hitting everything. And I'm like, at some point, a team is not going to hit everything. And what are we seeing now in these next two games? Boston's 3-point shooting has come back down to normal. So we're seeing variance just balance itself out, I feel. But I feel like these two teams are a lot more evenly matched. And the Knicks had another level they could go to, Mark and EJ. A lot of the talk with the Thibodeau teams that we've said in the past that, oh, the Knicks don't have another level they can get to. We look like the team that has another level that we can get to, whether that is everyone healthy, whether that is, the new health science doctor, Casey Smith, helping out with that. Maybe it was ending the Detroit series in 6, getting 3 days rest. What are your thoughts now as we look ahead to game 3, guys? What's your feeling in that? Is it a must win? And what do you feel like the Garden is going to be like, Mark? I mean, you can shed some light. The COVID pandemic game when crowds were returning, Linsanity, the Carmelo Anthony, Roy Hibbert game against the Pacers. I mean, what do you feel like it's going to be like on Saturday?
Well, people are paying enough money to be inside the building that they should be allowed to scream and yell as loud as they want. Well, the New York Post just did the story, I think, of $590 for standing room, just stand. Uh, I remember, I've talked about it before about that first game, playoff game against Atlanta, coming out of the pandemic. 16,000, I think, were allowed into the building, and my ears were ringing the entire night from a half hour before tip off. Let's go Knicks. That was only 16,000. So now
Wow.
you have 19,700 or whatever they announced now, chanting probably "Let's go Knicks." 30 minutes before tip off. It's going to be crazy. It is Saturday afternoon early, so, maybe people are a little less rambunctious at that hour. But it's going to be a fantastic, fantastic afternoon. And I guess they'll have that watch party, which should be fantastic. Uh, I think the ratings will be great. This is great for the ABC and TNT, Knicks Boston, very competitors. I think the TV networks want this to go 7, but I can't wait for tomorrow.
Just one more from me, Mark. Who are your X players or X factors rather on both sides? If you can name one, who might make a big difference in terms of Game 3.
Yeah, again, well, two things for Boston. I mean, Porzingis, uh, I covered him for a few years, and he's hurt a lot, but there's something about his game that's so magical. And if he could be healthy, and the next talk today at practice, we expect him to be fully healthy. I don't know. He's had this weird viral infection, but he could do so many things. Just listen, when the Knicks were on both roles, their offensive rebounding really stepped up, knocking the balls loose and getting second chances. But when Porzingis is in the game, he can corral those rebounds. He could also get an easy putback, which they desperately need when those 3-point shots aren't falling. He, to me, has always been an X factor for the Celtics. And back at the Garden, which he knows so very well, and the fans probably will be on him, but I think KP could be a big difference maker for the Knicks. Listen, I think McCall has been amazing, but OG, that game one, I've always criticized OG mostly for his durability, and I thought his new contract was a little bit too much. Honestly, I didn't think he earned it. He got it, but I don't think he earned it. But what he did in game one was so phenomenal in a big spot, and I have to tip my hat off to him for finally staying healthy. And he has earned that contract this year now with this nice postseason. And when he's drilling those 3 point shots, you don't need Josh Hart to be an offensive dynamo. You love when he gets to the basket with his downhill driving, but when OG is hitting those spot up threes and then going in transition also for the big baskets, it changes the entire complexion of this club. And you don't just need Jalen dribbling the ball all around with his great footwork to try to squeeze out 2 points. So it's OG for the Knicks and KP Porzingis for the Celtics.
And as we say farewell to Mark, and hopefully we get to talk soon, uh, prediction. Give us a prediction. How do you feel like the series is going to go?
Oh, no. You always want to get me in trouble, CT. Listen, I do think it's a little flukish to go down by 20 points twice and come back and win. I just can't see the Celtics shooting this horribly, and they have to win 4 or 5 games. Yet I think they could do it. I think the Celtics can come back to Boston for a game 7 and somehow pull it out. Listen, the irony, the Knicks have not been to the Eastern Conference Finals since my very first year in the beat in 1990, 2000. And, I covered that. Pacers, they lost. Ewing got booed off the court at the end. It was really like we were ripping the Knicks like crazy. And now here, there's going to be this unbelievable, incredible celebration if the Knicks finally can get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I'd really like to see it. If I had to put money down right now, gun to my head, I still would take the Celtics. It may be, winning 4 or 5 games is very tough to do. That's what my gut says. I hope I'm wrong, but I
Yeah,
do feel that the Celtics and the Leprechaun are going to rise up and break the Knicks' hearts again.
yeah. We all look forward to your tweet after Game 3 because look,
We'll be
I
watching.
think is it
I would
fair to
say they
say
have to
that?
go tomorrow for this to happen. So,
Yeah, is it
but let
fair to
me
say
just
that Game
explain.
3?
This shirt that I'm wearing, my daughter had given to me. If people have a good, it's called. My daughter gave it to me a few years ago during the pandemic. RJ, it said stupid ass. RJ Barrett had. It was the day, the night, the morning of an elimination game in against Atlanta, and I had asked him about next season. They were down 3 games to 1 or something. I can't exactly remember. And it was the morning shoot around, and I asked him on Zoom about the next season. If he feels great about what this team has accomplished this year and the future, and he just tore into me because he says we still have another game to play tonight, and he had this famous quote.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
I was just explaining the shirt. If you could
Yeah,
see it on the camera.
Oh no, we saw it. We saw it.
you saw it.
It's oh how history has changed.
RJ is now loving life in Toronto or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Him and IQ probably watch these games and say, what could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of me was thinking, what would all the former Knicks be thinking? Quickly, Randall, Dante, seeing the
Yeah.
Knicks go up 2-0. We saw J.R. Smith's reaction. He's
Yeah.
going to be at
Yeah,
the Garden.
exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
yeah,
thanks for having me, EJ. It was a pleasure uh,
My guy.
getting again the show together. And let's see, in June, you may still be running strong.
Yeah. Who knows? That's the beauty of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
that is. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Take
All right.
care.
Thanks again, guys. Take care.
Take care, Mark.
Appreciate you. CT with EJ. That was Marc Berman. Appreciate him joining us as always. EJ, it's great to see you.
Thanks, bud.
We've texted a few times, but I haven't really gotten your feelings, your thoughts and feelings. I guess after game one would have been like, okay, this is a one-off. This is a bit of
Yeah,
shock. It can
yeah.
happen in sports, but when it happened a second time, were
Yeah.
you more shocked, or were you more like, okay, we've seen it before? Boston they just didn't have an answer, and they were lazy again.
I think it was around the 7 minute mark in the fourth quarter that, the first three quarters, you have that air of frustration, right? First quarter, I don't know about you, CT, but I had that anger and that frustration of like, why can't we score? Like, what is it? Why is the ball not going into the basket? We're gonna squander such a major opportunity. This is not great, particularly, when you look at the game by itself, but then also look at it contextually, having seen what Indiana was able to do, you start thinking to yourself, like, wait, if Indiana could go up 2-0, can we do the same thing? And to start off the way that we did the first quarter, I think only scoring 13 points in that first quarter, you start to think to yourself, okay, we had our moment game one, reality has set in, Boston is going to dominate. And then to see the lead stretch through the second quarter into the third quarter, for me watching the game, I could feel that sense of frustration growing. But then once you start seeing towards the latter half of the third quarter, shots start going in. You see defensive energy, and we cannot diminish the effort of this individual. Mitchell Robinson's defensive energy and effort. Please, let's put some respect on his name. Let's put some respect on him really embracing this backup role and diving into it head first. Literally, because there was a play where he dove on the floor and grab a steal. Um, and then when we got to the 7 minute mark of that fourth quarter, and it became a game, that's when it started to get very real. And I don't know about you, I started to feel anxiety, major bouts of anxiety and like worry and like agita and like, wait, is this happening again? And then by the 3 minute mark, and it gets even more, it gets closer. This is this idea of, wait, this might possibly happen again, and to finally take the lead, and now we're playing defense to secure a win. There, I really believe we cannot underestimate. Is there something happening with regards to Boston and their mental makeup and their ability to actually close out these games? One time could be a fluke. Twice might be the beginning of a pattern.
100%. You said it. I feel like EJ, the Mikal Bridges minutes
Hmm.
offensively was what changed the game, kept us in it. Because I really haven't got an explanation. I don't really know why Tibbs was rocking with no Jalen, no Cat in those minutes. I mean, that was do or die. That was like you're half making a comeback. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
get one of those guys in the game. Maybe he was saving a timeout.
yeah,
But whatever it was, man, Mikal Bridges, those buckets that he got, it was easily 6 to 8 points, 6 to 10
yeah,
points
yeah,
that he got. Some of those were tough baskets on Drew Holiday.
yeah.
But then when Jalen was checking in with about six, you could feel the whole arena like
Hmm.
The Knicks are in this,
Yeah.
and I think Boston's quick trigger allowed the Knicks to put up points quickly. You
Yes.
know, I
Yeah.
think Boston's biggest issue was they just weren't playing to the clock.
Yeah.
They were trying to
Absolutely.
push a 50-point lead even more. They were trying to make,
Yeah.
even when they're up 20, they were trying to push it even more. And it's like, well, if you miss, it can allow the Knicks to score quickly as well. So a bit
It,
of arrogance, definitely for me.
it's where pace as a statistic is a dangerous statistic. Growing up, I don't remember the '90s Knicks that being a conversation, that being a statistic. It was a conversation. Like I remember, like growing up in the '90s and hearing about how the Knicks offense in the 1990s was very plotting. It wasn't as beautiful or wasn't as graceful as the Michael Jordan Bulls. It wasn't as graceful. The clear darling of the NBA at that time were the Phoenix Suns, particularly under with Charles Barkley, and Kevin Johnson and Dan Marley. That was considered like the most beautiful form of basketball at that particular point. Another example of that would be like the Seattle SuperSonics with Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. But all of a sudden, like in the late 2000s, I mean, I think probably around like 2012, 2013, pace has become this statistic that all of a sudden it's about getting as many shots up as possible, thanks Mike D'Antoni. But in many respects, that push in terms of pacing, getting up as many shots as possible, you could argue became Boston's undoing. Because as many shots as they were chucking up meant that there were more misses and it became more opportunities for the Knicks to score on opposite possessions. So, but I don't know if Boston knows how to play any other game. And that might be the flaw in their approach is that they don't have any other way to play against the Knicks because they had been so successful during the regular season.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like one of the main reasons I'm still really confident that the Knicks win this series, and yes, I still fully acknowledge that Boston are going to shoot better. There's going to be games where they'll shoot, maybe great, maybe just a little bit better, whatever it is. It
Hmm.
won't be 25% from three. They'll try to work the ball inside maybe a little bit more, and that might help the Knicks out a bit more because I feel like we've accustomed to the physicality, EJ,
Yeah.
against Detroit.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted to clown the Knicks for not handling the Pistons earlier. However, the main reason why I'm still bigger picture stuff is in terms of why I think the Knicks will win this series is there's so many factors that the Knicks can play better, at you know, Carl Anthony Towns has only shot two 3-point attempts in
Hmm.
both games, and they were both half court shots. Um, the offense, we didn't start well at all. The Knicks started really poorly. Role players play better at MSG. I think the
Hmm.
crowd, if they can just save their best game for game three, that will be enough to end the series. If Boston get one on the board, then obviously game four becomes so critical. How do you see the next two playing out, and what's most pivotal?
I think what's most pivotal is we have to win Game 3. If we win one of two games at the Garden, I would prefer for it to be Game 3 and not Game 4. Again, because I think there's something about the morale of this Boston team that is quite fragile at this point. That you want to take advantage of stepping on their throats as much as possible. You don't know, and we don't know how healthy Porzingis is at this point. We don't know how healthy KP is at this point. Take full advantage of the fact that Al Horford has to play extended minutes. Take full advantage of the fact that Peyton Pritchard, who's a thorn in everyone's side, his numbers theoretically should drop playing at the Garden. So for me, I'm really interested. I'm really invested in terms of how well the Knicks play Game 3. I'm really invested in role players. For example, a Deuce McBride really having a better Game 3 than he's had Games 1 and 2, because we all know the rule: role players play better at home. And something really quickly about the Detroit series. I think a lot of people have underestimated how good of a team Detroit was. And I would argue this all day. Of all of the teams that advanced into the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Knicks had the toughest challenge of opposition. The Hawks weren't much of an opposition. The Heat, we saw how much of a mess they were. Orlando is a team that, for as much as they made strides this year, they weren't the team that we thought they were going to be because they were incomplete. And Milwaukee, once Dame got injured, they weren't the team, they weren't much of a competition. I think people underestimate how good Detroit has been this year, or was this year rather, and the leap that they made forward. And so yes, it was a very difficult matchup, but that's actually a good thing because the Knicks were able to win three road games in Detroit, and to win them, that I think that speaks a lot about the fortitude that this team has.
Yeah, you said it, man. Fortitude. They're never rattled.
No.
Like to
No,
be down 20 and still come back. I mean, that's just as difficult it is throwing the game away because the
absolutely.
team doesn't just the opponent EJ doesn't just say, "Hey, lay the ball up." You know, you have to
Hmm.
find ways to score and definitely score quickly. But ultimately, we're here. I think EJ 2-0 up because our all of our X factors are just hitting. I
Yeah,
did this graphic on screen now with all of the matchups, and I think my key to the series was win more matchups. You
yeah.
know, it don't matter if Tatum wins his matchup, but if the New York Knicks can win more matchups than Boston, we'll win the series. And I think we've got to start with Mitchell Robinson. You know, as a real X factor. I don't think Joe Mazzulla, maybe the Boston Celtics, the media, maybe even some fans downplayed his potential impact because he only played in the final regular season game. And what do you make of, you know, Joe Mazzulla just moving heaven and earth to try to get him off the court? That's admitting that
Yeah,
he's winning his
yeah,
matchup and
yeah.
he's hurting you.
And also it's admitting that Mitchell Robinson is incredibly disruptive on the defensive end and on the offensive boards. I think that's something that Bill Daughtry in all of his infinite wisdom, there's something that he talked about in terms of predictions, and he talked about how you can't predict what happens from game to game, from series to series, from playoff matchups to playoff matchups. I will never ever forget the words that he shared and that kind of wisdom, and in part because when we look at the Knicks during the regular season, particularly when they played Boston, how many games did they play with Mitchell Robinson playing? And how many games had they played with Mitchell Robinson in rhythm, having more of being in game shape? He's a major contributor. He's probably your seventh man on the roster, and we can't diminish how important of a role he plays. Particularly when we look at that final possession in Game Two with Jason Tatum, a lot of that was Mitch playing stellar defense. Mitch leading Tatum into that vortex of Anunoby and Mikal. So, what are your thoughts, CT?
Yeah, I mean, it's fitting you mention Bill Daughtry, the legend. He happens to be coming through on Sunday night after Game Three. First time we'll have spoken to Bill since early in the season.
Oh boy,
Um, so yeah, I think Mitchell Robinson, defensive impact. He's always done it with the Knicks. It's just been a matter of being healthy. And I just feel like it's serendipity that first round Isaiah Stewart wasn't healthy. Mitchell
yeah,
Robinson was. Joel Embiid, we all know what happened last season.
yeah,
Joel Embiid didn't finish the season healthy and isn't in the playoff. Now Kristaps Porzingis had, you know, shine last season in the finals. Now he's not healthy. Mitchell Robinson, this is his time. Maybe
yeah,
this is the time when the outside world, you know, Knicks fans know what Mitch brings, but now the outside world can really see Mitch and then two other guys for me, Hart as the X factor, and Mikal Bridges.
yeah.
Do you agree with the graphic in terms of the Knicks winning those matchups?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think that it's important. I think that a lot of people, a lot of prognosticators, didn't really fully understand who the Knicks were. And for example, the fact that this was Mikal Bridges' first season with the Knicks, and understanding that every player needs that adjustment period. Some adjustment periods are longer than others, and even when you take a look at the success that Cleveland had this particular regular season, a lot of that is because at this point they have a lot of familiarity. They've been playing with each other for a while. It builds the sense of I know what I want. I know where another player is going, where the cuts are coming. Um, we're asking, we're literally asking a roster who had two fifths of its starting lineup that are brand new to beat the defending champions. And so it's important that we remember that we shouldn't minimize the accomplishment that these first two games have been. And the fact that CT, you're right, a lot of these matchups, when we look at it on an individual level, the Knicks they're not something to be played with. So let's celebrate that. I'm excited for game three. Obviously I will be watching very, very closely. I wanted to go to the game, and Mark Berman was right. I checked out those prices, and I said I will not be able to go to those games, but it will be exciting nevertheless.
Man, I completely understand, man. But yeah, it's going to be the hottest ticket in town. Um, I feel like we're the more mentally tough team, and I really feel like we're definitely going to get one. So for those that are worried that Boston might get the next two, I feel strongly that the Knicks will get one of the next two. But to your point, EJ, I completely agree. I think it needs to be game three.
Yeah.
There's something to be said going 3-0 up. And Boston are definitely going to bring their A game. I mean, they're playing for their life, and the Knicks need to use that leverage. Once they get one on the board, then their composure maybe sets in a
Hmm.
bit more, and they start to really feel like they're in it again. But for game three, they're going to be like, we can't afford to lose this one. So maybe the Knicks can use that against them, execute, play the more loose team. And if the
Yeah.
game is close, I think Boston will tighten up.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I think so too.
I am going to predict a game three win. Um,
Wow.
don't know how you feel, but I will predict a game three win, and then I think we'll be looking at a Pacers Knicks. Well,
Ooh.
we better wait for game three with
Yeah.
Cleveland, Indiana. You know,
Bro, and I also think, look, we also have to consider the refereeing factor as well too. Um, I think that we want to really win Game Three, because if we win Game Three, Boston will get into this era of desperation. There might be some like a lots of complaining during a Game Four. You don't know how to react to lots of complaining. Perhaps there's like this kind of like softened approach in terms of refing the game, and we've seen a little bit of it this particular playoffs. For example, that 3-point shot that Jalen Brunson put up, and there was a no call against Derek White, and he had no landing space. Um, we have to be mindful of it, and I'm really, really hoping that we take Game Three, because once you take a Game Three, it's virtually impossible to win four in a row in the playoffs, particularly with a team whose psyche seems to be incredibly fragile at the moment.
yeah, I think to wrap it up, EJ, I feel like the Garden is just going to be so much to overcome, and I feel like the Knicks, haven't performed great at MSG during the playoffs. We obviously know they blew the closeout game. But
Hmm.
I've just got this feeling, and I've had it ever since this series started, that the Knicks players have waited for this moment. They seem to be playing a lot more loose against Boston, and they know that,
Yeah,
look, Detroit was that up and coming team, but we maybe had one eye on the next round. But
possibly.
now
Yeah.
it's like we're here, and this is the team that we really want to take down. And so I feel like all that momentum on Saturday, it's going to come down to, yeah, who can make the most shots. But I think,
Hmm.
yeah, Deuce McBride has really found his rhythm this series. Campaign plays better at the Garden as well.
Hmm.
Mitchell Robinson's impact. It'll be interesting to see if he goes with Hacker Mitch again. Final thoughts for Game Three. What's going to swing the pendulum?
Lots more physicality. I think that Boston will be more physical. You're down 2-0. You know you need to win a game, possibly. You need to win a game, possibly two, at the Garden. So I think they'll be a lot more aggressive. I think it'll be really incumbent upon the Garden faithful to make it as much of a hostile environment as possible. But I do think that this will be yet another close game. And I do think that it will come down to one or two reserves really stepping up and having a lights out moment. And that's going to be either Deuce McBride, Mitchell Robinson. And I'm really hoping for another stellar game from Mikal Bridges. If Mikal Bridges is scoring 20, 25 points, then we've won the game. That's really my prediction. Mikal Bridges scores 20 plus 20, we win. Minus 20, we lost.
Yeah, I like that. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Mikal. It's great to hear Berman say that Mikal Bridges has been amazing.
Yeah.
I might use that for the headline. Um, yeah, I really feel like Boston won't change what they're going to do, EJ. I feel like they'll shoot threes. They'll try to get those threes up, and that'll
Hmm.
play in the Knicks' favor if they don't shoot at a good percentage, because the Knicks will get the long rebounds, and if they can get fast break opportunities with the crowd going crazy, I think it's been a wrap. And we haven't mentioned this guy's name, but big shout out to Cat. I really think
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
changed all season. I've said this, he's changed the ceiling or raised the ceiling. We see Julius Randle having success, and I'm happy for him, happy for Dante. I think the trade is definitely working out for the Knicks. I think Karl Anthony Towns 17 rebounds. I
yeah.
think his impact can't be ignored. The fact that he's not hitting a single three in the series yet, and he's still scoring 21 points, 17 rebounds, playing like an old school big. Even Shaq paying him some credit,
Yeah.
on TNT. And as we wrap up, EJ, we will get Mike Breen on the call finally for Game 3,
I
ABC,
know.
together with Doris Burke and Richard
Thank
Jefferson.
God. Thank God. I'm done with Reggie Miller of these calls. It's like, no thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, well, I think it'll be special. Serendipity that Mike Breen will be on the call. I think we'll get a double bang again, and I
Yeah.
think 3-0 series up, and we'll be there to recap it post game. Like and subscribe to the channel. The Professor EJ with us, Marc Berman. Bill Daughtry will join us on Sunday as well, Sunday evening, 8 p.m. The day after Game 3. Hopefully, we're talking about that game ending well, and obviously looking ahead to possibly an Eastern Conference Finals. Man, unbelievable, improbable, but let's go Knicks and let's close Boston out. Peace, everyone.